Hey, today I have a special treat for you. I'm with my buddy Alan. Alan's the CEO of Ecovest Capital. So today he's going to give me a tour of his office, share a little bit of his story, but also then give me a tour of the penthouse, the best penthouse in Atlanta, right?
Absolutely.
So Alan, go ahead.
Welcome. Welcome to the office.
Thank you, Alan. Now, so tell us a little bit about your humble beginning, right? I know that you didn't come from money. You grew up poor, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I grew up in New York City, family of four, mom, dad, my sister. What I didn't know is my dad worked 3 jobs just to take care of us as children. I had no idea we were poor. I had no idea that they didn't go to the movies or they didn't go to restaurants. All I knew is I always had new clothes. I was able to play Little League. I was able to always have new sneakers. So I never knew we didn't have any money.
Yes.
And my dad was interesting, worked nights also. And he would come home from his night job when I was waking up to go to school in the morning. As a result of that, I had breakfast with my dad. He would go to sleep. When I would come home from work at 3 o'clock, he'd be waking up.
Wow.
I'd have my afternoon snack with my dad while he was having his lunch ready to go to work.
Yes.
So I saw him more probably than my friends whose dads worked traditional 9-to-5 jobs.
Yes.
So
you felt he was around, although he was working
absolutely.
3 shifts, right?
Absolutely.
Would you say that a lot of your work ethics today, you picked that up from your dad?
100%. He taught me the value of hard work, good education. I was the first in my family to go to college, and that meant a lot to my dad. What was funny to my parents, what was funny is they thought that meant training for the world. And he thought that once I had a college degree, everything in my life would be different.
Yes.
He didn't understand, having not, having grown up in the school of hard knocks, that a college degree is just a college degree.
Doesn't mean a whole lot, It doesn't mean a whole lot.
It doesn't mean a whole lot today. But it's where I had a great time and was able to explore different things. And I found out that I'm a learner. I like to learn and I like to meet people.
So when did you start Ecovest Capital?
It's funny. It's not my training or background. We're a sponsor of investment programs that are real estate based and sold through FINRA registered broker dealers or SEC registered investment advisors. I don't have a background in capital markets. I don't have a background in finance.
Yes.
I mean, the reality was I was a tennis pro growing up. My dad believed, and it's really funny, he thought that he grew up poor in the Bronx, and he thought that if I learned to play tennis as a child, that I'd meet a lot better class of people, I'd learn
better
a little more
influence,
social skills, influence, and give me more opportunities.
Right.
And he was right. So I decided that I was going to use my tennis to meet people, and it exposed a whole world to me. At 16 years old, I realized that I was not going to make it as a tournament tennis player. So I wound up working for a gentleman named Nick Bollettieri. Nick at the time was the highest paid teaching pro in the world. He had many resorts where he was the head tennis professional. Today it's IMG Academy in South Florida where juniors, high school children train in a variety of sports for a professional career. Great educational standards, great athletic standards for their future. So I decided, having grown up in New York and having family in the record business, I really liked the record business, but I thought it was, I don't want to say sleazy, but not the most legitimate business.
Correct. No, doesn't feel like a real business.
That's right. It was
I got it.
A lot of deals and a lot of things that were not necessarily above board.
Got it.
So I decided I wanted a career in advertising. And the only job that I wanted was at Ogilvy and Mather.
Oh, wow.
Ogilvy and Mather was one of the biggest advertising agencies.
I studied David Ogilvy.
Right. So I read Confessions of an Advertising Man from David Ogilvy. And that's when I decided that was my first job.
Wow.
They didn't know that yet. So teaching tennis in Long Island in the Hamptons, that summer I met a gentleman named Peter Craighead, who was the managing director on the American Express worldwide global account. He was on the board of directors of Ogilvy Worldwide.
Wow.
I met multiple creative directors because tennis was trendy back then. This is the mid-'70s.
So a lot of the successful people, they play tennis.
They play tennis.
That's like golf, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
As golf is today, and
Yeah.
they came through my clinic.
Yeah.
So I made a deal with Peter. He wanted to win the Ogilvy and Mather tennis tournament, and I wanted the big job at Ogilvy and Mather.
Oh, so there's a barter going on, right?
made
You
the
help me
deal.
do this, I help you do that.
We made the deal.
You got the deal, yes.
And I thought the fix was in.
Yes.
So I trained him for the summer. He won the Ogilvy and Mather tennis tournament. And again, I thought the fix was in. All he did was set up an interview with the person running the account management training program.
Okay.
So when I got there, I had a little swagger. I had a little arrogance.
So you thought you're going to get the job.
I thought I was getting the job. I thought the fix was in.
Yeah.
So in the interview, you might say I was a little more assertive, a little more aggressive than I might have been.
Yes.
There was no fear.
Yeah.
What I didn't know is David Ogilvy said, we only want to hire superstars.
Yes.
If you don't think that you could sit in my desk, behind my desk in my chair one day, we don't need you. He wanted to hire people smarter than you and better than you so that when you got promoted, the person below you would be capable of doing your job. So I didn't know he was looking for superstars. And when I interviewed, I was pretty full of myself, which allowed me to get the job.
Yes.
So my career started in advertising. And my training from big agencies at Ogilvy to small agencies, I wound up starting my own advertising agency, worked in a family business for a while. But my training has always been reversed. Most companies kind of market from the inside out. In other words, what they make, they're experts in what they create or what they make. And revenue, what they called sales or marketing, which I call revenue, was an afterthought. And that was typically outsourced to a different department or a different company. And my training is a little backwards. I learned that if you understand who the ultimate end user is, who your targets are, what do they want, what do they need, how are they currently being serviced, what would they pay for service if they only got what they wanted? What would they pay for service if they got something they didn't know they wanted? I mean, think about that. If you did a focus group back in the Henry Ford days, it would have said we need faster horses.
That's right.
No one could comprehend.
No one could see the vision, what the possibility was.
Of an automobile.
Yeah.
Today, the classic example is Steve Jobs.
Yes.
No one could have said in a focus group, I needed a smartphone, an iPad,
internet,
an iTouch.
and that's right.
Exactly.
Revolutionary.
So by understanding who your end users are, then I asked, can you reverse engineer it in a manner that would make sense to do the brain damage to actually put a product forth? And that's my training. And I've had that training across multiple industries. Healthcare, packaged goods, cause marketing, B2B, B2C, across pretty much every category under the sun. I wound up, my mom passed away, my dad and I weren't getting along very well. I decided it was time to leave New York City and kind of grow up. For lack of a better term. I moved here to Atlanta and I found a job at a small advertising agency. And by the way, I didn't fit in very well in the South. Being a brash New Yorker, let's just say it wasn't easy. And I didn't help myself very much.
And didn't get along with people that well.
That's right. The southern drawl, the social niceties. In New York City, you know where you stand. Everything is definitive. Yes, no, don't ever call on me again. What I've come to learn in the South, what I call the Southern no, is,
let me think about it. I'll get back to you, right? And then you never hear from them again.
Call me in 2 months. And I thought they meant call me in 2 months.
Yes. What means is a no.
Right. So I kept calling them back. And they said, well, you asked me to call you in 2 months. And now they're embarrassed. And I wound up doing very well. So
that's a good follow-up call.
But I didn't do it to be persistent. I was so naive that I actually believed they meant what what they said.
Yes.
Because growing up in New York,
You
people
thought
were
that's-
direct.
Right.
So when they tell you something, I thought that actually translated into the truth.
Right.
Having said that, I've been fired from every job I've had in Atlanta.
What were some of the jobs that you had?
So I started at a small advertising agency, then I went to a big advertising agency, and I was always pitching new business. I was considered a revenue guy. I had good experience. I had good salesmanship skills. I was able to connect to people. So at the end of the day, I was the new business generator.
Got it.
For these shops.
Got it.
And my first job offered me a 15% commission. Now at $5,000 and $10,000 jobs, they were happy to pay it. But that's boring. So I brought in a client, a division of Amico Corporation. The first job was $32 million.
Wow.
Which meant my bosses owed me 15% of that, so they immediately fired me.
Wow.
Instead of renegotiating, they fired me.
Yeah.
The next job...
So you got fired because you closed too big of an account.
Because I closed too big of an account.
Damn, okay.
They just assumed I was lucky.
Right.
The next job is I brought the same piece of business to a large advertising agency in the South.
Right.
I don't know if I should use their name.
Yes. some company, ABC company.
Some company, ABC company, where they offered me a significant increase in salary and 5% of my billing.
Wow.
There was a 90-day clause in my contract. They could only fire me in the first 90 days.
Right.
I said, what's this? They said, well, what if you don't have the client? What if you're a sociopath? I said, that seemed fair. On day 89, the chairman of the Atlanta office of this company fired me.
What the hell?
He called me into his office. He said, close the door. I need to tell you something.
Yeah.
I said, sure. I can't believe I'm going to tell you this story. He said, if you weren't Jewish or from New York, it would be different. But you're in the South and you just don't fit in.
Oh, wow.
To which I responded, I understand that you haven't had a new business win in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that you'd like to knock $1 million off your profit plan, and the easiest way to do that is to fire me.
Right.
So here's what we're going to do. I realize you're from Tennessee, a small town in Tennessee, and you're at a distinct disadvantage in this negotiation. I said, what I'm going to do is allow you one more chance to fire me and maintain some level of self-respect. And he couldn't do it. He just looked at me and, he just couldn't do it. So I've now been a millionaire, I was fired. Now I'm a millionaire, now I got fired.
Yes.
So now I'm unemployed again. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent.
Yes.
I don't know. And the thought of going back to New York City just never occurred to me.
You feel home, right? You feel
Well,
like
it wasn't even home.
It's just...
Is that every time I took a shot, I figured I had to fight back. Like failure was just never an option. So I had to keep going.
But you didn't get fired because of not performing. So you knew what you could do. It's just, it's like you didn't find the right vehicle or the right company, right?
No, that's a fair point.
Right.
I mean, I'm considered entrepreneurial, but it's never been by design. It's always been by desperation.
Correct.
I have to figure out the next right thing to do.
I always say, people are motivated by either motivation or desperation. They change because of one of those two things, right?
And I had desperation going for me.
And then, so from there, and then what's the next step?
So it's kind of funny. I went to New York City for a family event, and I'm flying back. And the thought occurred to me that, I mean, if you want to come in right here, this is my office. Right, so I was flying back from New York City to Atlanta, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm feeling like a loser. How is a self-respecting woman going to want to date me? You know, I'm unemployed. And I had a thought. I'm looking out the window, and I had a thought that I'm going to become president of my own advertising agency.
Nice.
I decided right then and there I was going to start my own company.
Nice.
A funny thing happened. I still didn't have a client.
Yes.
I still didn't have any income.
Yes.
But my attitude changed. If the plane went down tonight, I would have gone out as a success as president of an advertising agency, not as an unemployed loser who can't make it.
Yes.
And my attitude changed, and I went out and I pitched my first piece of business on my own, and I won it. I pitched the second piece and I won it. I won 5 out of my 6 new business pitches, and I created a life for myself.
Yes.
And through the course of this, I met a lot of wonderful people in the South and created relationships that are still my friends or my business peers today. In the course of doing this, my core clients in Atlanta have always been financial institutions and real estate developers.
Got it.
So having that background,
and they hire you to do marketing for them, right?
To do marketing.
Like it's almost like, is it like a full, like a boutique service? You do A to Z?
A to Z. Full service marketing, revenue, sale. I mean, I would do everything. For the small banks that I've done,
yes,
I took one bank from 180 million in assets to $1 billion, and in about 5 years. And for them, I did everything as if I was a full-time staff person, running the revenue side of their business. I did everything except approve credits or be part of a loan committee. I created their new products, their pricing. I put them in the credit card business. I managed their credit card.
How do you charge something like this? Like how do you work out deal? Like is it like a retainer or is it?
So that's a great question. I came up with a pricing model that was not value based. It was about what did I need to have a nice life.
Okay.
So I charged them. This was a
nothing
while
wrong
back.
with that.
This was a while back.
Yeah.
I charged them $10,000 a month for a retainer.
Yes.
As a fee, actually, without anything billed against it.
Okay.
And then I charged hourly on top of it for everything that I've done.
So basically 10,000 just to get you.
Correct.
Right? Just to access to you, basically.
Correct.
And then bill whatever per hour. How much back then?
Between $100 and $150.
Okay, so for all the work that you do?
It was $100
What about,
an hour.
did you do any kind of media buy for them? Like if they
We
need
did everything. We did
Okay.
I did their account planning. I wrote their business plans. I developed their new products, their pricing strategies. I bought all their media.
and then just pay on top of that.
Yeah, and they paid for everything. I marked up the things we purchased. I mean, I created a very, not lucrative in terms of creating wealth,
Yes.
but creating a very nice lifestyle.
Income.
Income-wise.
Yes.
A very nice lifestyle.
Yes.
In fact, the chairman of the bank asked me to buy a house. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. He said, no, Alan, you need to buy a house. Well, I've never lived in a house. I don't know how to buy a house.
Yes.
That's a commitment that I've never experienced.
Right.
So the chairman of the bank says to me, we're buying a house next week. I said, congratulations. He said, no, it's your
You're
house.
buying house, yes.
He said, I said, well, what do I do? He says, you look at 2 and you buy 1. I said, I'm not in the position to do so. He says, I know how much I pay you. You're buying a house. Do you want to start to create some wealth? So he drove over to my house. He said, where do you want to live? And let's hire a realtor in the neighborhood. And I picked the neighborhood. And we looked at 3 houses. And he crawled with his flashlight in the crawl spaces and looked.
Seriously?
Yeah, he did, the chairman of the bank.
Yes.
And he told me to buy a house between $100,000 and $115,000.
Yes.
He picked this house. It was $129,900. It was outside of my budget, but he told me this was your house. So I said, what do I do next? He hands me a card of a closing attorney. He says, next week, you go to this guy, and he's going to be your lawyer and close.
Right.
I never filled out a credit application. I don't know if we can repeat this, but at the time, I never filled out an application.
Right.
I was not approved. They didn't do a credit report.
Right.
They just told me to go buy a house. It was a character loan.
Yes.
So I went to the closing attorney, and the interest rate that I was quoted was half of what was on the closing document.
Oh, wow.
So I asked the attorney, how do I change that? And he said, well, you don't. I've been doing this for the bank for 30 years, and you can't change it. So I said, but that's not the interest rate he told me. He said, well, take it or leave it. I said, hang on 1 second. I called the chairman of the bank.
Yes.
I put him on the speaker, and I said, I'm at the closing attorney's office. He said, congratulations, terrific. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. I said, what was my interest rate? And he told me. I said, thank you very much. Click. He goes, okay, I'll change it.
So good. That's so good. But the chairman was actually kind of helping you.
Correct.
He could see things that you could not see, right?
he did things for me that I would have never in my wildest dreams imagined. He called up my dad and sent him a note to tell him how wonderful I was. He did things behind the scenes that he really genuinely cared
Was he
about.
kind of like your mentor in some way, a little bit?
In many regards, I would
Yeah.
say he was a friend / mentor, and we grew up together pretty much. He inherited the bank when his dad passed away, and he needed help, and he knew he needed help, and he was smart enough and mature enough to allow me to help him, and he made a choice to trust me. So that worked out to many other banks and many other real estate developers, etc. And then this one particular real estate developer that I've had as a client asked me to write a business plan to put him in the second home amenity community business. This is prior to the crash. This is when everyone was a real estate investor. You could learn how to buy real estate with no money down.
Are you talking like infomercial?
From the president himself,
Yes.
from Donald Trump at Trump University.
That's right.
And if you didn't live in an affluent zip code, from Carlton Sheets, you know what I mean, in the middle of the night.
That's right.
So I wrote the business plan for this real estate developer.
Yes.
He liked it. He went into that business and he asked me to be president of the company. And the reason I tell you this story is it happened again. It happened again. Right, so he wanted me not to get rich on guarantees or fees, but to eat what I killed. So we agreed on 3% of sales. He put down on a spreadsheet that I would sell 30 home sites at an average price of $150,000. I kind of laughed and told him his biggest problem is he won't have enough inventory for me. He thought I was cute. We shook hands. We made a deal. That first year, by the time the first year was over, I sold over 550 home sites at an average price of $200,000.
Wow.
I made more money than I've ever made in my life.
Yes.
And the bulk of it still hasn't closed yet. They were contracts written that were 3-4 months out. And then he fired me.
Damn.
Because when he realized how much money he owed me,
Yes.
he immediately let me go as to avoid paying the commission.
Correct.
So now, once again, I'm a millionaire, and I just got fired.
Damn, it's like every time you can touch it, you can taste it, and boom. And then you can touch it, taste it, and boom, again.
Absolutely.
The funny thing is when I was a copywriter and I transitioned into being a marketing consultant. So similar story where clients come to me, they're desperate, that they need to grow the business.
Absolutely.
I help them turn it around. I come up with the strategies. I do the execution. I wrote the copy, do all of that.
Right.
Then what happens is I didn't get fired, but kind of that when I made them a lot of money, you
didn't get to share in that.
Yeah, I didn't get shared, and it's like I solved the marketing problem. They don't need me anymore. So I lost the client because I'm so good at what I do, and then they don't need me anymore, right? And then somehow clients always forgot. Hey, when you were,
that's right.
When you were desperate, when you were desperate, when you were not making the profit that you're making now, then I remember I was the guy who helped. But once they're successful,
that's true.
They don't remember that.
They kind of think it was them who did.
Or maybe the luck, or something magical that happened, right? It's not the marketing guy.
That's
right?
true. There was another frustration I had in the marketing business, in the advertising business, and that was, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to my clients.
Yes.
But many of them did not tell the truth. And you may ask, why would a client hire you and not tell you the truth? And the reality was they didn't share the competitive issues. They didn't share the contingent liability. They didn't really talk about the truth. They would hire us in what they wanted
to tell, the stories.
The story they wanted to tell, but we really couldn't solve the core business issue unless they were completely honest.
Right.
So to be honest, I was a little frustrated, and that's kind of why when this opportunity to take over the real estate company posed itself, I was willing to do that.
Got it.
Right, because I wanted to also, I figured that if I could run the company that I created the plan for, I could share in some of the rewards that I've created.
And it makes sense. It feels like you're kind of still in business for yourself. You're the president. You just didn't expect that they would do that.
Greedy and be so short-sighted.
My goodness.
So I took all the money that I made and I looked for my own deal. It was my first real estate development deal on my own. and I purchased 3,000 acres and a golf course 10 minutes before the crash.
Wow.
And I was able to sign, for a first-time project, a market private equity deal, an 80-20, 50-50 private equity deal, meaning the private equity firm puts up 80% of the capital, I bring 20% of the capital, and we split the profits.
Because you do the work, right? Yeah.
Correct, and that was the promote for finding the deal and getting the work done. In the course of the due diligence on the acquisition, and it was a fabulous project. The sellers got the impression they sold it too quickly, and they approached me to release the private equity and joint venture the project with them. What would that look like, I was asked. And I said, well, I'm a 50-50 partner with the private equity firm. I'll be a 50-50 partner with you.
Right.
I have one caveat, and that is I'm tired of getting fired.
Yes.
I've been fired now 4 or 5 times for producing.
What's the saying? Like, happens once, shame on me.
That's right.
Happen twice, happen once, shame on you. Happen twice, shame on me.
Well,
yes.
Shame on me a lot, 4 or 5 times,
yes.
because I still didn't learn.
Yes.
So this time I set out to learn, and I said, I need my equity. If we're going to release the private equity, I need my equity piece, my 50%, to vest on day 1, so that you can't fire me. I said, I'm happy to allow you to recoup your money ahead of me in the waterfall and to be paid back, and I'll just take salary, until which time we make distribution. But again, I don't want my equity, therefore I can't be abused. Well, then the crash happens, and you find out who your partners are, not when you're making money, but when
you lose money. Yeah.
When money's tight.
When shit hits the fan.
And that's how you really know who your partners are.
Yeah.
So in the course of one of the things that happened in this project is I inherited the obligation to donate 1,200 acres to the Trust for Public Land. It was my first conservation easement. But I didn't know that's what it was. It was part of the property that I acquired. So I learned about conservation there. And I learned that most conservation easements, when they're done by a local attorney who doubles as a real estate attorney, an ambulance chaser, and a divorce attorney,
The double dipping.
that your conservation easement is not necessarily the way Congress had intended it to be.
Got it.
So that was my first exposure. I worked my way out of the project due to the crash, and now I find myself available with nothing to do. A neighbor, a friend, lived in my community, ran an independent broker-dealer, and he was trying to grow it. He was an accounting-based or a cost-based manager. He knew that he didn't have the revenue or the marketing or the relationship skills, and he sought to hire somebody that could do that. Well, I had nothing to do, and everywhere he went, my name kept coming up as the obvious choice to help him. So again, with nothing to lose and a lot of time on my hand, I wrote their business plan pretty much for free, just for something to do. They really liked it and asked me to be their chief marketing officer. They hired me. I'm now the number 3 executive of a FINRA registered broker-dealer, an SEC registered investment advisor. I'm not a licensed.
But you're always the rainmaker.
Correct.
Right.
I was the rainmaker for this company.
Yeah.
So I was hired in the holding company level. So I was not we were in a regulated business.
Right.
But I was not selling products nor giving financial advice.
Got it.
So like everything else, all businesses operate the same. Control your cost, increase your
revenue. Yeah.
That's it. I think we tend to overcomplicate things. So in the course of learning their business, I do what I do best. I interview people, I read, I research. And what I've come to find out that it's actually, although it's an overly regulated business, it's a pretty simple business model. So I wrote their business plan and I helped their growth plans. My job was to double the size of the firm in 2 years and then do it again in 2 years. I did it in 1, then I did it again in 1.
Wow.
And in the course of doing this, I created the investment program, which ultimately became Ecovest Capital that we have today.
So let's check out the penthouse.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it'd be my pleasure.
Tell me the story.
Well, before we go, if you take a look right over there, that building right out my window is the Ritz-Carlton Residences.
Yes.
It's a lovely high-end condo project, and I was about to buy a 3-bedroom, lovely unit at the Ritz-Carlton Residences.
Right.
I saw the unit we're about to go to when it was listed for sale.
How much was it selling for? This unit.
In here?
Yes.
This was about 1.3, 1.4
Got it.
at the time.
Yes.
And the one we're going to now was about twice the price.
Twice the price, yes.
And I felt that it was a little too expensive and I really shouldn't buy something of that, in that neighborhood.
Yes.
A good friend of mine, one of my business partners, suggested that when you're buying real estate as an investment,
Yes.
you should first, of course, buy where you want to live.
Yes.
But after that, if you buy in another building, there's always going to be 3 or 4 more units for sale at any given time.
Yes.
So you may appreciate, you may depreciate, but at the end of the day, you're stuck with the market cycle.
Yes.
He said he buys one-of-a-kind real estate.
Yes.
And when you do that, there's always somebody that wants to purchase that apartment and that is willing to pay the cost of that.
That's it.
So he suggested that, let me make it easy for you. You're just parking money. It's an investment.
Yes. You're going to live there.
You have to live there, enjoy the lifestyle. Truer words were never spoken. I was offered $1 million more for that unit 2 months after I closed.
You could have just flipped it.
Right. And not only that, right after it closed, I was approached by Universal Pictures to film a movie in it. And since I haven't really moved in yet, I wound up moving in.
And they pay a lot of money.
They paid a lot of money.
They pay a lot of money.
And the film comes out this April in a few months.
Cool,
so it was a lovely experience.
That's awesome. Let's check it out.
Sure.
Alan, here we are.
Welcome.
This is like the Alan MTV crib. we need, give me some like music right here. Right here. There we go.
Welcome, everybody.
Boom. Oh, wow. Wow. Nice. Very nice. Beautiful view. Only someone who lives in a condo you can appreciate this. Look at this, the same things. Glass ceiling.
I forgot the name of the handwork on the inset. Cost a ridiculous amount of money. But please, out here.
Oh, you could have your own concert out here.
This is the selling point.
Oh, wow.
This is beautiful.
Summer house here in the city.
Wow.
So it's not a great evening due to the weather, but you can see the view. It's completely unobstructed.
Beautiful.
It's plumbed for a hot tub. It has a separate dedicated water heater for the hot tub.
Right.
That I haven't done yet.
Yes. You're gonna do a big hot tub here.
Yeah. I think it'll be on the ground.
On the ground?
Today is not a great view, but that's Stone Mountain over there.
Nice.
That's the Buckhead view, which we have interior as well.
Right.
And then that's the Midtown downtown view.
Nice.
And
I like how it's like almost like 360 like that.
right, absolutely. We have 360-degree views here.
Very nice.
Not from every angle.
Right.
There's an outdoor kitchen, Viking range, the egg.
I can see why you got this one. I can see
Yeah,
it.
so down there where all those lights are, that's where the Atlanta Braves play.
Nice.
And right the night before the Super Bowl, the Thunderbirds were practicing.
Yes.
You know, their run directly from Dobbins Air Force Base
it's from here.
to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is right in that group by that red flashing
Very
light.
Nice.
Wow.
The sunsets are right here. They're just magnificent.
Wow.
You can't see them tonight, obviously.
No,
but
I can imagine.
so the only thing we don't have is a waterfront.
No, but for this price is good.
Let me tell you,
I would totally buy it.
by Atlanta standards,
I would
it's
totally-
prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
By real estate standards, the replacement cost is 3 times.
Correct.
It doesn't exist, and it
doesn't
will
exist.
not get built again.
It will not 100%.
Right, so that's why I bought it.
That's beautiful. Goodbye. Goodbye.
It was a great buy.
It's a good buy. Wow. Barbecue, right?
Barbecue, Viking
Summertime,
range, outdoor
nice.
fireplaces,
Very nice.
outdoor kitchen, private jets, PDK is right there.
Nice. That's the, okay, now that's living room. Very
Right,
nice.
there's a small den, wine fridge,
Fireplace,
right,
nice.
see-through fireplace.
Very nice.
And you did all the furnishing yourself, or you had a...
No, I bought it furnished.
Got it, yeah.
I bought it furnished. I
Oh,
bought
wow.
everything they had.
Wow. Smart.
So this is the master.
Very nice.
Heated floors, ambient floors, everything's heated.
Awesome.
The master bath's actually
I can
pretty
see why
nice.
people would offer 1 million more. This is cool. This is very cool. You don't see this a lot, where the bathroom, 2 doors.
Sure.
You gotta. I don't see this a lot. This is beautiful.
Well, the her side, the closet configurations is set up for
Right.
you know, for female.
Yes.
So you, besides the double sinks, you have a makeup
And there's your
area,
makeup. Yes.
extra sink.
Very nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
It's very good.
Worked
Great
out pretty
buy.
well.
It's a great buy. And the Ritz-Carlton unit wouldn't have that,
No,
right?
no, that doesn't exist in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Unless, unless it's a 3-story building,
Right.
kind of in the west side, kind of typically where we were, like
Awesome.
last night. So this is a nice room as well. The designer was, I forget his first name, his last name is Hibachi.
Yes.
Michael Hibachi.
Michael Hibachi.
And he did a whole, and the rest are the kids' rooms in the back. They're not all furnished yet. This is my daughter Sarah's room.
Oh, nice. Nice, and then it's got the view.
Right, three more bedrooms.
Well, what's,
more baths.
what's the square footage?
It's about 4,800 feet.
Wow, that's nice.
Right, interior, and
Right.
about the same exterior as well.
Wow, that's very
You
nice.
never think you got your kids here. The way the house is so organized and clean. And
Well, they're not here often.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, this is Rebecca's room, the 14-year-old.
Yes.
Here's Hannah's room as well. Guest suite,
Very nice.
ensuite bathroom.
Very
And the
nice.
rest of the Buckhead view,
Wow,
which is lovely.
beautiful.
And our office is right there. You can see our office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right there. So close by.
You can walk.
You could. Summertime. Summertime.
Right. And then this is all like lock storage, and that's the back entrance. So I misplaced the key to the storage area.
Oh.
So once I redo everything, I'll
then you
finish
can
off
put
this
it.
area for
Perfect.
the kids.
Perfect. So Alan, we were talking about just like marketing and advertising in general, right?
Sure.
And then you've been doing marketing forever. I've been doing marketing forever. I'm curious to hear, like all these companies you've helped, that you are the rainmaker, you help them go from here to here, like you're the rainmaker, revenue generator, right?
Sure.
What are your marketing principles or philosophies? There's always a template, right? Like
Sure,
there's always, when you go into a company, what's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do?
So I've been very fortunate that in my training, I learned how to learn businesses.
Okay.
And that's the biggest benefit or the insight.
Yes.
So all businesses operate the same. I mean, there's two basic principles: control your costs, increase your revenue.
Yes.
There isn't a lot beyond that. We tend to overcomplicate it.
Yes.
And if you could see your silos, if you can chart the anatomy of the business and how revenue is generated from R&D, manufacturing, distribution, research, and you can bring it back, then you can actually look at the points that you can actually affect through communications. You can actually say between here and here, we could do something. We could do some public relations here or create an
Yes.
event.
Yes.
Or between here and here, we can have some, a push or a pull, in terms of the message.
Right.
The challenge is most business operators look at their business from the eyes of what they make and who they are,
Yes.
not what other people perceive themselves to be.
Okay.
I mean, there's too many books on branding and
Yeah.
business and marketing
Marketing
and
and-
sales.
Yes.
And I see that many clients confuse the word marketing with sales.
100%.
Right, so that's the first error.
Yeah.
The second is they don't understand the basic branding principles.
Right.
And just to make it simple, when you build, I would argue that branding, I would change the word to mean business. right? And when you think about it, when you're building a brand, you have to stand for something, right? Most folks don't necessarily understand what they stand for,
Or what they stand against.
or what they stand against, and they try to accomplish too much. It's too broad.
Right.
If you're building a business, what do you make? What do you stand for?
Yes.
Right? The next step, which is pretty simple as well, is you actually have to stand for something that's believable, right? You don't want to make a claim like it's the world's greatest cup of coffee,
Yes.
right? Because if I'm a coffee drinker and you tell me that's the world's greatest cup of coffee, I'll try it. That is a strategy that will incur trial.
Yeah.
But unless I've done the consumer research that knows
Yes.
that if you taste it 2 or 3 times, you'll be converted to a loyal user.
Yes.
Since taste is subjective,
Correct.
a claim
Totally
like that
subjective,
will force me to try it, and then I'll walk away and say, well, it was good, but it
not the
wasn't
greatest.
necessarily the greatest I ever had. And that's not a strategy that creates loyalty, that cements the emotional bond with the product delivery for a long-term, high-value client. And the other piece that people don't realize is you have to stand for something that you can actually pull off.
Your ability, your capabilities, your execution.
100%.
Yeah.
If you say it's 9 a.m. or it's free, or it's 1 hour or it's free, it better be there in 1 hour.
Yes. Otherwise, you'll be delivering a lot of free pizza, right? Yeah.
And too many business owners think they could just be kitschy and quick, or that the phrase matters, and it does if it pays off an idea, if it pays off a business strategy. And my experience is good business people and good marketing people deal in strategies, and amateurs deal in tactics.
Tactics, that's right.
And that's at the end of the day.
Very true.
We're all the same.
And it's very interesting you say that, because it goes back to, first of all, what you're saying, understanding customers, understanding your own business model. Because I found that even as a consultant for so many years, that like we have a privilege of, because most people, they run one business, right?
Sure.
But we could go in and we look
Absolutely.
at so many different businesses.
The gift of objectivity.
Yeah, and I learn from different clients, right?
Absolutely.
And we're not so emotionally attached to, oh, this is my baby, this is my thing. No, just take a look at the business. What moves the needle? What generates the revenue?
That's right.
What is going on? This is a leak right here that you're not upselling your customers, right?
That's right.
Or you're bringing customers at a cost that's too high, or whatever it is.
Missed opportunities.
Or
Absolutely.
here's a collaboration, a joint venture opportunity that they don't look at it, right?
Sure.
Because they're just running their thing. Because of that, we look at different companies and we're able to see these things. And it seems to me that then you've developed this skill, really, because one of the things I teach is called high income skill. You develop the marketing skill that you'll be able to go into a company, an organization, you can make them grow,
I've been
right?
given the gift of independence and objectivity.
That's right.
And that allows me to see. It allows me to create vision that most people they're too close to.
That's right.
They're
That's
just
right.
too close to.
That's right. And then from there, and now you're doing your own project. Tell me, like, some of the projects, maybe last couple of projects that you have worked on that you're very proud of.
Wow. So the list goes on. I've built banks from small banks to big banks. I did something you'll think is funny. I took one small bank from 300 million in assets to 500 million in 2 years without an acquisition.
Wow.
And without
Like internal growth, just
internal
revenue.
growth, just by reviewing their data.
Wow.
A bank's operating system traditionally can only access its accounts via account number or social security number. But if you can aggregate all those accounts by household, not only do you know what services those people have with you, the predictive model is not very difficult to understand what they don't have. And if you look at the account opening sequence, it's very easy to predict the next sequence that they have.
Yes.
So it was like taking candy from a baby. It was such low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
I charged a lot of money,
Yes.
and all I did was
look
look at their own data that they didn't have an understanding of how to use.
Right.
And I'm sure that's pretty similar to what you're doing today.
100%. And it's like they don't know they're sitting in a gold mine, right? They just don't. They're too close to it.
They can't see it.
And no one helps them to see where it's almost like they have the key to the treasure box.
Absolutely.
But then they're like, "Where's the key? Where's the key?" Well, it's right there, right?
It's like my storage unit.
Right? It's like it's right there. It's exactly it. It's just right there, and then it opens. But somehow I think people like marketing. We appreciate marketing.
Absolutely.
I think people who are not in marketing, I don't know if they appreciate marketing. It's kind of like, yeah, I got to do some marketing stuff, right? I got to have a marketing budget, right?
Sure.
Right? They don't look upon business is about marketing innovation, right? Just like
it's all about revenue.
Yeah.
You can have the best machine in the world or manufacture something terrific, but if you can't sell it, if you don't have any revenue, all you have is expense. And it's funny because revenue people are considered salespeople, and the salespeople are considered less than when you look at the content people that create the business.
That's right.
The analysts, the researchers,
That's right.
the smart guys
That's right.
are the ones who have the credibility.
That's sitting in the office, right?
They
Versus
sit in the
going
office.
out there, bringing
and those
in,
other guys,
Yes.
we keep them on a separate floor.
Yes.
Sometimes in a separate building.
Yes.
And unfortunately to them, those people make more money than they do.
That's right.
Right? Because they understand something and have a skill
Right.
that the folks in the office don't have.
Right.
When you could marry the two,
Yes.
when you could marry the two with something that's marketable today. I hate phrases, I shouldn't use the word hate, but I really don't like things like state of the art. State of the art connotates the future. It connotates trial, it's not established. And I don't like things from the past. This is the way we've already done it. We always do it this way. Because those techniques could be considered old or stale. I like contemporary, I like present value.
What's
I like
happening right
day.
now.
If you can create a product or a service that's marketable, that solves a need for the consumer today, then you've got a business worth pursuing. And what I try to communicate to folks is that they have to live in the present. You're selling in the present,
Yes.
and the buyer is in the present.
Yes.
And if you can use it in today's language and in contemporary, I just lost my thought, and solve a problem today, you have a much greater chance of success.
Alan, do you find that what's your business model today? So you have your own projects. Do you still work with company or you don't work with company anymore?
Sure. So the marketing and advertising business is over for me personally.
Yes.
When I took over the real estate company, I stopped looking for clients in my own business. And then when I purchased the property in Tennessee,
Correct.
That was my first entrepreneurial
real estate
development.
deal, yeah.
My first development deal.
But-
Actually, not my first one, but
but you didn't even know much about construction. You know marketing,
correct.
but the development side you don't know.
So that's a funny story. So I met with probably the largest developer I've ever met
Yes.
prior to purchasing the property in Tennessee, 3,000 acres and a golf course. And he didn't want to take the meeting. He's technically retired. He was a global developer. He built the first skyscraper in China. He's built hotels all over the world. He's built multiple Disney theme parks.
Wow.
He's the biggest I've ever met. And I've been fortunate to have a nice relationship with him. And I asked him to meet with me to talk about this project. And his response was, I don't have any money, I'm not taking it over, I'm not gonna run it for you. And I was like, no, I don't need anything from you. I just wanna talk. I wanna pick your brain. I wanna learn from you. I have my own project, my own money. I just wanted to ask you a few questions.
Yes.
And he said, you don't need anything from me than lunch? I said, no. He goes, I'll take the meeting. So I told him what I wanted to do and what I was working on, and he said, well, you need to do these three things, this, and this.
Yes.
I said, okay. I came back a week later. He was surprised.
And you did those three things.
I did those three things.
Right.
I did all those things. Then he says, now you have to do this, and this.
Yes.
And I went, okay. I came back a week later and did them. Again, he was surprised.
Yes.
And then he looks at me, he says, do you understand that you have a deal? And I went, Yeah, why do you think I'm so nervous?
Yeah.
Right? I did everything. First of all, he didn't expect me to do it.
He thinks you'll go away in a week, right?
And then he took me aside and he says, congratulations, you've just become a developer. I said, what do you mean? He said, the development business is pretty simple. No one will teach it to you. You can't go to school to learn it. The only way you become a developer is by being taken advantage of and screwed by so many people and having the perseverance to figure it out and do it for yourself. He says, if you open the dictionary today and look under developer, you'll see your picture. Congratulations.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, wow. You understand, you only can do this by experience. And that's what I've never been afraid. I've always done things way above my pay grade, but I'm a learner. And since I grew up poor, failure is not an option.
Yes.
Whatever capital I had, it's everything I had.
You gotta put it on the line, you gotta make it work.
If it's on the line, it's going to work.
Yes.
And I found that most people give up too soon. Businesses fail because they're either undercapitalized, they grow too quickly and can't afford the growth, or they just don't want to finish. It gets hard, right?
We were talking about it.
That's
You got to finish things.
You got to finish. I mean, tunnel under it, climb over it, run around it. It doesn't matter. Whatever obstacles are put in your way, we have to deal with it. And people who finish are people who succeed.
Right.
And that was a life lesson. And that was a life lesson. And I've been fortunate enough to sit at the feet of some very wise people. And well, my personality, I wind up in places I probably don't always belong.
Yes.
And growing up in New York, my father taught me to always walk with my head up high, my eyes open, and look at all the people around me.
Yes.
He said to make sure you understand your surroundings so you're not surprised.
Yes.
He did that from a security standpoint.
Yes, they don't get beat up.
Right, exactly. But what that taught me is how to connect to people and how to notice people.
Right.
And in my business today, it's pretty funny. I will tell my staff on a business trip, I met so-and-so, or I just sat next to so-and-so, and these are A-list celebrities and athletes. And they said, we don't believe you. Like, nobody meets that many people. Yeah. I said, I'll prove it. I started taking pictures, right? Everywhere I go now, I meet somebody. Yes. I start taking pictures of them or selfies to prove. Yes. And they said, how do you do that? Yes. And I told them.
You just connect with people.
I just have big eyes and a nice smile, and I meet people and I connect.
Yes.
And I said, the next time you go to the airport, look around.
Yes.
I promise you'll recognize someone. And my COO came back. He said, Alan, it works. You're absolutely right. And he sent me a picture of Sinbad.
Oh, nice.
Not an A-list celebrity anymore, but it was pretty funny.
Yes.
So in the transition between, this is where our business gets pretty interesting today. After the crash, and I worked my way out of the property in Tennessee, I was approached, as I shared with you, to be a senior executive at an independent broker-dealer.
Correct.
And I don't have any experience in the advice business, in the financial advice business.
Right.
So I had to learn that business.
Right.
So I learned it operationally. I was in charge of all the revenue of the firm.
Yes.
So under that umbrella, my portfolio included due diligence of financial products, recruiting of financial advisors, becoming the program or product expert, practice management to teach the financial advisors how to grow their business, you know, how to keep the business they have and grow it. Now remember, the broker-dealer business is highly regulated by FINRA, the SEC.
Correct.
And I have to make businesses simpler in order to be able to understand them, in order to be able to communicate them. So I broke it down, and the business plan I wrote was all about the financial advisors being able to run their office more efficiently and to grow their businesses to attract new clients more profitably. That's how simple I was able to break
Those are
down.
what I call the critical success drivers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we have to execute on that. So again, not knowing anything about the advice business, I interviewed all of the financial advisors and I asked them to pitch me
Yes.
as a potential client.
Yes.
The challenge was they were terrible.
They suck. I could imagine.
They were terrible.
Yes.
I was so disappointed. I thought there was more science. I thought there was more. Unfortunately, many of them were just peddlers of other people's financial products.
Right.
And the term financial advisor, wealth manager, stockbroker, they didn't really fit. So I had to understand their business in order to help it. But I knew that nobody would believe me since I don't have the experience. But I knew the answer to the problem before I started. But I'll say this again. I knew the answer from my own personal experience, the key to their growth, but I also recognized they wouldn't believe me. So I set out and created some qualitative and quantitative research in order to prove my thesis. Now, the truth is I knew the answer before the research.
Got it.
So very informally, I interviewed 200 financial advisors.
Yes. Wow.
I interviewed approximately 1,000 retail accredited investors, which is what everybody is trying to attract on the advice side.
Right.
Scores of attorneys, CPAs, bankers, professionals, and I asked them all the same question. Now remember, since I'm in charge of the platform, of the investment program platform,
Right.
all of the programs were targeting returns. We target 6%, 8%, 12%. And the advisors themselves were selling. How much did your advisor make last year? I made 6% last year. Unfortunately, they were more sellers of returns, of investment products and returns, than they were in true financial planning mode. So since all businesses operate the same, control your cost, increase your revenue, I applied that metric to a financial plan. And since there were so many strategies and products targeting revenue,
Yes.
I concentrated on the cost side. And as I said, I knew the answer, but I knew no one would believe me. So interviewing 200 financial advisors, 1,000 accredited investors, scores of professionals, I asked them all the same question with the proper corresponding follow-up. What is your single biggest or most significant personal expense? And the number one answer was mortgage, primary residence.
Boom.
The number two answer was children. And the qualifier was either private school or college.
Got it.
The number three answer was interesting. I didn't see this coming. It was healthcare.
Oh, okay.
And from a common sense perspective, you would think it meant premium, but it wasn't. It was identified as a family that has a special needs child.
Got it.
That's not covered by insurance.
Got it.
That's not reimbursed, or an aging parent that they support that's not covered. And fourth is retirement.
Okay.
And we all know we never do enough with regard to our retirements
100%.
because we're going to live forever and we have plenty of time.
Yes.
The rest of the list is strictly lifestyle on this research. From 5 to the rest of the list was, I'm a golfer, I want to play the tournament courses.
I like to fish, right?
I'm a fly fisherman, I want to tame the famous rivers. It didn't matter what your collectible was, your travel, it was all a lifestyle issue.
Got it.
Now you're nodding your head. The research makes sense, right?
Yeah.
When I present the research, everybody nods their head. They agree with it. The challenge is the research is believable, it's credible, it's scalable, it's defendable. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. At the time that I did this, I was paying 39.6% federal income tax, 6% state income tax, 3.8% Obamacare, 1.4% Social Security, all in.
Yes.
I was paying approximately 48%, 47, 48%.
Yeah.
If you lived in California where your state income tax could be 12 or 13%,
Right.
you were just shy of 60%.
Right.
In the Northeast, 52, 55%.
Right.
Only in the non-state tax states,
Right.
you were averaging around 40, in the 40s, in the low 40s.
Yeah.
So let's just, for common sense purposes
Yes.
and easy math, approximately 50%
Of the money.
of your money you earn goes out in taxes.
Correct.
And yet nobody identified it.
Correct.
So which tells me as a marketer that they don't believe or feel they could do anything about it. So then I asked, what do you do for tax planning? And the number one response, I mean almost 100%, was I have a CPA.
Yes.
So what happened was the investor, the client,
Yes.
confuses tax preparation with tax planning.
Tax planning, yeah.
And to make matters worse, the financial advisor wasn't participating.
Of course.
So then I looked at who were the top financial advisors in the country.
Yes.
And they do two things that most financial advisors don't. A, they embrace tax planning as a core competency.
Okay.
And B, they create a family office environment.
Ah, yes.
Now, if you're a wealthy individual
Yep.
and you have a $50 million portfolio
Yep.
or greater at Goldman Sachs,
Yep.
then the chances are you have a family office.
Sure, sure.
But if you're Dr. Jones and you make $1 to $5 million a year,
Yeah, you're not there.
you do not have a family office.
Correct.
And you have 2 or 3 financial advisors competing for your business.
Correct.
You have an insurance guy that you don't
Yes.
want to talk to.
Yes.
And you have Murray, your hypothetical CPA,
yes.
who's afraid,
Right.
to do so. And your financial advisor doesn't speak to your CPA
Correct.
because they're considered adversarial.
Correct.
So what I set out to do was, since the top advisors in the country are comfortable in the family office environment and, in the tax planning side, I wrote a business plan and set out as a growth plan for my broker-dealer to teach my advisors how to embrace tax planning as part of a financial plan. And in addition, by integrating the CPA into the purchase decision, into the investment decision, you're now creating what I'll call a de facto family office.
Right.
Right? Because after all, everyone has the same responsibility to support
It's almost
that
like a
client.
shared office kind of idea, right?
Pretty much,
right? Like
but-
co-working space, but it's in financial planning.
Correct.
Right? Very innovative. Yeah, I can see that.
So that's what I set out to do. And then I looked at the platform of investment programs, and there wasn't any investment programs that had a tax component to it. The only ones were oil and gas programs. And the challenge with oil and gas programs is they're not mainstream.
Yeah.
The IDCs, the intangible drilling costs that are available to the investors
Right.
in a drilling program are
Right.
only available if you're a general partner.
Right.
So when you come into a program like that, the IDCs are worth approximately 60 to 80% of your investment dollars, but you also are taking on general partner liability.
Got it.
Which means environmental litigation, there's an abundance, so it's not a mainstream investment program. On the other side, there really wasn't anything else. So if you look at investment products, period, any investment across the board, the returns from an investment program only come in 3 forms. They come as income, meaning distribution,
Yeah.
growth,
Yeah.
meaning hold for appreciation or have an exit,
Yeah.
or tax.
Yes.
There are many tax incentives in certain structures or tax efficient structures.
Right.
Look at a 1031.
Yes.
Look at a tax deferred, bond programs that kick the taxes down the road. So those are the only 3 strategies for income, for investment returns: income, growth, or tax. What I set out to do, since I couldn't find one available in the commercial market, was to create one. So if I look at my personal experience, I understood land development because I was very good at it.
Yes.
I understood structured development, building homes and
Correct.
single family, multifamily.
Correct.
I also understood conservation because I inherited that obligation to donate 1,200 acres.
So you had to figure it out. Yeah.
I had to figure it out. So in creating the product that ultimately became Ecovest, it was really a compilation of my own personal experience. I'm not interested nor have the proclivity to read the IRS tax code and figure out something that has a tax benefit. If I didn't have that personal experience, then I would not have been able to incorporate it into this.
Today. So it's interesting because it seems like then everything you've done in the past, even the mistakes
That
you
is
got
correct.
fired,
That is correct.
it feels like, at least that's how I see it, everything leading to Ecovest today.
Correct. Everything
Every
happened-
mistake,
That's right.
everything that, because of the next, you learn a little bit about the industry, you learn a little bit about the industry, you learn how this business model works,
That is
and
correct.
and boom, you put it together.
Absolutely.
I felt the same way because everything I've done, where I felt like all the mistakes, all the failures, the skills I've developed, but it felt like when I found the right business, that this is home, this is where
Sure.
it's meant to
It
be.
all came together.
Everything, it's almost like everything leading up to this.
Sure.
That this particular business requires all the skill sets you've accumulated
That's
in the
correct.
past, right?
That's correct.
So Alan, what advice would you have for entrepreneur?
Ooh, that's a great question. So you have to really ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing.
Why you're in business?
I recently taught a class at the university where I went to school, and it was the night Steve Jobs died. So the next morning I gave up my whole syllabus, and I asked the question to the audience, to all the students, since
Right.
Steve Jobs was so meaningful in their lifetimes. And I asked them, was he a great man? And they all said yes. And what made him a great man? And they said that he had a great idea. So I asked the audience, I asked the students, how many of you today have a great idea? Raise your hand. And they all raised their
Of course,
hands.
every one of them have a good idea. Yeah.
I said, I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
What made Steve Jobs successful was not that he had a great idea, that he had the perseverance and the willingness to attack this, no matter how many obstacles were put in front of him, no matter how hard it was to continue to fight to win, until he eventually solved his issues and became, and created Apple to the company that it was today. I asked the question of these millennials, how many of you are willing to put that type of work
Yes.
into this
All
great
the hands.
idea? Every one of the hands went down.
Wow.
So the biggest advice that I could give to an entrepreneur today is to be passionate about what it is that you're looking to do, and be willing to put the time, the energy, the resources, the capital behind the idea in order to see it through. And they have to finish. When it gets hard, that's when people fail.
Yes.
But when you talk about capital comes in many forms.
Yes.
We all understand it
Yes.
as financial capital, as
Yes.
money, as
Yes.
financing, as
Yes.
equity.
Yes.
However, there are many other types of capital. Human capital,
Relational capital.
relational capital, political capital.
yeah.
Do I want to put my resources to bear to solve this problem? But most importantly, what's come up over the last few years is environmental capital. And environmental capital is typically not discussed. When you look at historically, in order to make a profit, many companies did it at the expense of the environment.
Correct.
And today I would argue that's not necessarily the case anymore. Since I'm a real estate developer, I'm typically accused of taking beautiful habitat, waterfront property, wildlife, fauna, and turning it into impervious surface for profit. On a trip to Yellowstone with my family, we were able to see the majesty of the land and the ecosystem. And I learned a story that was just fascinating. The ecological balance of the park was off, and the park started to die. So counterintuitive to common sense, the park rangers introduced 40 wolves into the park. That doesn't make sense, right? Why would you introduce predators
into the park?
Well, the introduction of those wolves, they were able to the wildlife that was overeating the vegetation and making it unstable. Those animals decided to stay away from the wolves. As a result of that, the wildlife came back, the fish came back, the trees, and the fauna came back. And it created this perfect balance, this perfect ecological and environmental balance to restore the park. The park is approximately 2.4 million acres.
Wow.
What I've come to learn is developers like myself, we lose about 6,000 acres of open space a day to real estate developers, which equates to the size of Yellowstone National Park every year. And conservation of this land, protection, the biggest protection we have to climate change and global warming is to protect our national resources. And Congress understood that. The problem is it's financially expensive to buy land in order to preserve it.
Got it.
So Congress passed laws approximately 40 years ago, trying to shift the financial burden of conservation from the federal government to that of the private landowner. In 2017, the US government spent $184 million in conservation efforts to acquire land to conserve. In 2018, the Department of Interior reduced that number to $54 million. In the proposed budget for 2019 that hasn't been ratified yet, they're looking at $8 million towards conservation efforts. Until for-profit enterprise, until developers consider protecting land rather than destroying land, habitat is going to get pushed further and further out. So where is conservation needed most? It's needed in areas of high development. And since that's where we make the bulk of our profits, we have a home builder in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, right on the intercoastal. We'll probably build over 300 homes this year for profit. So in areas like that, where we make our biggest money in resort development, that's the areas of critical concern. So what we've been able to achieve is that we figured out by building less and conserving more, that balance creates a combination for the real estate investors of income, growth, and tax, and the net value is all of this acres of land that gets preserved and not turned into impervious surface. Take it a little further, I'll give you a specific example. In this area of Myrtle Beach, we've removed approximately 20,000 development units permanently from ever being developed. These 20,000 units will never be built. So common sense says, wouldn't the county or the municipality be angry because they're losing their tax base? And this is where it's counterintuitive, but it's true. If you look at the economics of this, by removing those 20,000 acres that are 20,000 units, not acres, that are guaranteed to be developed on the intercoastal, on the waterfront, you've created additional value of the remaining development units, so much so that the tax base has remained relatively neutral, in fact is also growing. So they're not losing anything.
Exactly like you talk about the ecosystem. It's balanced, right? It feels you are leaving money on the table,
but it's not.
But it's not.
The opposite.
It's the opposite.
It is the complete
It's
opposite.
like you are doing the right thing and you make more.
Absolutely. And if you treat your business like an ecosystem, that it has to be naturally evolving and has to occur in real time, you can actually do things that you wouldn't have looked at through the traditional lens. So by removing those 20,000 units, an incredible thing happened. The way development occurs is a municipality has to investment spend in order to bring water, sewer, resources, and they expect to get that money back in the form of excise taxes, tap fees, etc. The problem is it never happens that way. The municipality always investment spends and never quite gets it back. There's a hope there. In this case, by removing those 20,000 units, what that really means is 40,000 toilets don't flush on a daily basis. 20,000 kitchens don't cook. The fire department, the police department, the health care needs of those 20,000 units do not have to take place.
Right.
The cost on the landfill side of the waste that's generated doesn't occur. So not only does the tax base remain constant or improve, the costs associated are reduced dramatically. And we could make as much money, or not as much money, but a fair profit in building less more often than trying to build these programs.
And try to maximize every square footage,
every square inch for
amazing.
profit.
That's amazing.
So we've been able to combine income growth and tax into a manner that we
and I think that's also a great selling point when you communicate the message to the public that this is the way that you build, right? And people would associate, okay, Ecovest, that's what they do, and the way they build, they're not going to destroy the environment.
That's right.
Right? They have values and principles, right?
Absolutely.
I think it's a very powerful, just from a marketing point of view, right?
Thank you. I mean, we're really proud of this. And today, I'll call myself an environmental capitalist.
Yes, I love that.
I want to make money. Like as I told you earlier, I grew up poor.
But it's like it's the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do.
Well, there's no reason you can't do the right thing and make money. And by paying attention, using energy efficient materials, trying to lay out your projects in a more efficient manner, there's no reason not to do it. The fear of doing it is you'll lose money. I'm here to tell you, we've proven that you can do it and you can make money.
I think that's the message for really this conversation. It's doing the right thing and make money and finish things, right?
Absolutely.
Finish things. Alan, appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for the tour. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
It was terrific.